This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy. Just drop in some details about yourself and see if you're eligible to save money when you bundle your home and auto policies. The process only takes minutes, and it could mean hundreds more in your pocket. Visit Progressive.com after this episode to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Welcome to Orioles on the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens. And on tonight's episode, we're going to break down a big wave of promotions that happened in the Orioles farm system following Sunday's games. And we're going to grade listener trades as part of a kind of new tradition here at Orioles on the Verge. It's the second straight year that we've done this leading up to the deadline. We'll also put ourselves through the exercise during the last call segment. That is all part of this episode, which is brought to you by IQ Bar, our exclusive snack, hydration, and coffee sponsor. IQ Bar protein bars, IQ Mix hydration mixes, and IQ Joe mushroom coffees are delicious, low-sugar, brain and body fuel you need to win your day. The Ultimate Sampler Pack is a great way to try all IQ Bar products and flavors. You get 9 IQ Bars, 8 IQ Mix sticks, and 4 IQ Joe sticks. All IQ Bar products are clean labeled, certified, entirely free from gluten, dairy, soy, GMOs, and artificial ingredients. All IQ Bar products are packed with clean, delicious ingredients that keep you physically and mentally fit, like magnesium, lion's mane, and more. With over 20,000 5-star reviews and counting, more people than ever are fueling their busy lifestyles with IQ Bars, brain and body boosting bars, hydration mixes, and mushroom coffees. Their Ultimate Sampler Pack includes all 3. IQ Bars become part of my daily routines, whether it's starting my morning with IQ Joe, grabbing an IQ Bar or IQ Mix to refuel or rehydrate after a hard workout. And right now, IQ Bar is offering our special podcast listeners 20% off all IQ Bar products, including the Ultimate Sampler Pack, plus free shipping. To get your 20% off, text MLB to 64,000. Text MLB to 64,000. That's MLB to 64,000. Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details. And as we like to do at the top of every episode, we want to welcome a new member to our Patreon community. And for that, I will turn it over to Bob.
Yeah, I'd like to welcome Amanda Adams to the AA level. We have drafted you into our patronage, and we appreciate the support at the AA level for a year up front. I hope you enjoy the show.
And as a reminder, you can sign up to become a patron at the $3, $5, or $10 levels and have access to bonus weekly coverage from Bob, Nick, and myself, as well as monthly updates to our top 50 prospects list and access to patron exclusive channels within our Discord community. Plus, our patrons now have I guess you can call it tradition 2 years. There's been a sweet night at Camden Yards each of the last 2 years. So shout out to Devin, one of our longtime loyal patrons, for organizing that. Over the last couple of seasons, they went out there on Saturday night, and it looked like a good time. Now, to get into the big news that happened in the Orioles farm system over the past week, after months of us questioning, speculating, why aren't we seeing more promotions, we finally got a big wave of them this week. Infielder Hector Camposano, along with fellow infielder Damone Newell, are going up from the FCL to Delmarva, where they'll be joined by K.K. Clark and Francisco Morale, 2 standouts in the FCL's pitching staff this season. Christian Rodriguez, who has had an excellent year as the ace of Delmarva's staff, is getting the bump up to High A Frederick, while Vahiva Aloy, Victor Figueroa, Caden Hunter, and Joe Glassie are all getting the bump up from Frederick to Chesapeake. And then a pair of arms, Luis De Leon and Jerome Watts Brown, will get the move up from AA to AAA. Now, unfortunately for 2 players, Cobb Hightower and Ike Iris, this comes a little bit too late. Iris out for the season with a torn meniscus that he suffered last week, while Hightower officially is out for the season after suffering an injury on July 7th. Looks like a pretty gruesome knee injury in the game for Delmarva. Both of those guys probably would have been in this mix if they were healthy, but we do have a pretty significant wave of promotions in place here. And Nick, I'll start with you. You wrote up the moves on our Substack on Monday morning, and I think one of the things you really captured in that article is that some of these players, especially on the pitching side, have been playing their best baseball over the last few weeks.
Yeah, it's July 27th, and we finally get to talk about promotions on the show. So that's fun. Right as the draft is taking place and wrapping up, and the trade deadline hits. So we're just jamming a whole season's worth of content here in the next 3 weeks or so, but I'll take it. Yeah, the pitching, I think these guys are getting moved up at the right time. Still a couple names that I'm shocked didn't get a bump up. I think a lot of us have been thinking could get a move up over the last couple of weeks. Guys like Yeber Cartaya, I'm surprised he's not up in Double A yet. Some others as well, but I mean, if you start down the lower levels first, just like Francisco Morale has been, if you just look at his baseline walk numbers, not good this year, but I mean, he's been so much more effective over his last 4 or 5 starts. He's 20 years old now. He's been in the system for a couple of years, so good to see him in Delmarva. We're going to get first look at him live, at least with our own eyes, so that would be a lot of fun. But as you move up, it's like Christian Rodriguez had nothing left to prove in single A, and just kind of felt like he was going to be there as like the innings just might not be there in high A yet. And we've seen this with other arms like Braxton Bragg and some other arms in recent years where maybe the Orioles just feel like it's better for their development if, yes, maybe they've checked all the boxes in single A, but it's better for their development to consistently be able to go out every 5 days or so and throw 6-7 innings, as Christian Rodriguez has gone 7 innings a couple of times there with Delmarva. So good to see him up and get a real challenge here. He goes back to Frederick, technically, since he pitched there when they were a draft league team. So hopefully a cool time for him. I don't know if he enjoyed Frederick or not. Hopefully he did. But Jerron Watch Brown, again, same thing. There was the delayed start to the year because of the shoulder injury and the numbers. He's walking a lot of guys. He's given up a decent amount of home runs this year, which he still is, prone to give up the long ball. But you look at the walk and strikeout numbers have been amazing over the last month or so. Same thing as Luis De Leon. He's had a complete turnaround. He gave up 10 runs and didn't even make it out of the third inning in June or something, sometime in June. I forget the exact date. I don't have the whole article pulled up here. But ever since then, he's been pretty much lights out. Got the walk rate down, a sub-2 ERA over the last 2 months or so. And then just Caden Hunter, just my God. I was not expecting Caden Hunter to get a second promotion this quickly, but I'm here for it. He did the 2 things we talked about. We said we wanted to see him do: go deeper into games, walk fewer batters, and he's done both of those things. It took him a couple starts to settle in high A, but he didn't even really need to rent an apartment in Frederick because he was only there for a couple of weeks, and he's going 5+ innings. He's got the walk rate down. Just chef's kiss. Love seeing the pitchers hit their stride at a good point in the summer to get these promotions. Now they can close out their year here with a handful of starts at new levels.
Yeah, it's very exciting. It better late than never. Every week for the past few weeks, I feel like it's been, all right, this is definitely the week. This is the week. This is the week. Well, now we're here. And yeah, it's not going to be a long stint for these guys at their next levels, but it's going to be something. And maybe, I mean, ultimately, I think it's probably not that big of a difference. A few weeks here and there, maybe just the way things are crammed at some of these levels that they just thought, we're working, things are going well with their development. Let's just, why change it if we don't have to? It would be nice to talk to someone and pick their brain about the differences between this year and the last few years since Elias and company took over. And there's still some guys that I thought could have been moved up, like Frederick Ben Cosme. I thought he could have gone up to AAA, and maybe there will be some more moves tomorrow in the wash where it's like, just to make the rosters even, you got to make a couple more adjustments here and there. Maybe there will be some things like Andrew Tess was in FCL finally rehabbing. Maybe he'll come up to Delmarva and continue to rehab, even though it's basically the level he would be at. But yeah, I'm most excited for Luis De Leon to get to AAA because he's been rocking and rolling the last few weeks. Just seems like a second half pitcher the last couple of years where, he struggles a little bit, then he figures it out and turns it on. Love to get the metrics for him, even though we've seen some of that between the AFL and spring training, but just see where he's at with his analytics and his pitch spins and shapes. And he's going to be added to the 40-man roster. I don't think that's any debate, but a nice finish here. And maybe he's competing for a roster spot in spring training next year. And Juwan Watts Brown, I give up on him and he starts pitching lights out. So happy to be wrong in that instance. And yeah, I guess I'll just turn it over to Zach, and then we'll go through it a little bit slower.
Yeah, I think that as I look at this group here, De Leon and Watts Brown, I made this point on our Patreon bonus show this week that I think these are prototypical case studies for pitchers who have been a lot more effective than their baseline stats suggest. De Leon did not have a good April, but you look outside of that one horrific start at the beginning of June, he's been very good, and he very quickly turned the page after that start, and it's just been lights out since then. And then in the case of Watts Brown, he had the shoulder injury at the beginning of the year, and you could tell the first month or so that he was back at Chesapeake that he was not 100%. The command just hadn't come back yet. But as time went on, you started to see the Jerron Watts Brown we've seen in the past, which is a guy that can really pile up the strikeout numbers. More than baseline stats, because I'll admit that I kind of am at the point now where I expect regression from pitchers when they first make that jump to AA, from AA to AAA, because of the change to the baseball and the change to the strike zone. I'm not going to read a whole lot into their stats, but one thing I'll be looking at closely with Watts Brown is the fastball. Because we know throughout his career that's kind of been the one knock is he's got really good secondaries, he piles up a lot of strikeouts, but that doesn't look like a major league starter's fastball. That's kind of been the question mark that has been there with him. But if he gets up to Norfolk and we're realizing, maybe the velocity is not top tier, but it's got really good shape or it's got really good movement, or as he got further into his time in Norfolk, we started to see improvements in these areas, because I think that's going to say a lot about his promise in the future as a starter. And the point that I had made on this Patreon episode, and I think it's worth making again here, is that right now I think it's kind of seen as a foregone conclusion. Luis De Leon is Rule 5 eligible at the end of this year. He is going to get protected. I think that's absolutely what should happen. I think it is what's going to happen. Jerron Watts Brown is also Rule 5 eligible at the end of this year. And if he goes to Norfolk and he's effective and the Orioles like where his stuff is, I think he's right there in that mix.
Yeah, especially if, he keeps pitching the way he has. And even if they think ultimately he's a reliever in the long run, if they think he could be really dominant as one with that slider that he's got and then ramping up the velocity, then maybe they want to protect him. Or maybe they can showcase him a little bit for a trade here in the next week. We'll get to that possibility in a little bit. But yeah, it is true. Good to mention the changes in the AAA ball, as well as the first time with the ABS challenge system for these guys. Or are they using that all throughout the minors, or is it just in AAA?
Just in AAA, I think.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't wrong on that. But yeah, it'll be very interesting to see what these guys do at AAA. Just like Trey Gibson last year, we were excited for his season, rightfully so. And then he gets to AAA and he hits a little bit of a wall. But we've seen him use that as a way to go into the offseason, how to attack it and adjust. And we've seen vast improvements at the AAA and Major League level from him this year. And the way he pitches is different, but without that time in AAA to figure out his reaction to the Major League Baseball compared to the minor league baseball and just the way hitters attack his stuff, it made a big difference. So I think this is important no matter what the results are. But yeah, and then AA, it's like I thought Mike Ashman would have got the bump up, but Joe Glassy gets to join him, so that will be a nice right-left combo late in games. And obviously Wahiva Aloy, like Irish, rest in peace, and Victor Figueroa. We've been waiting for these guys to get up there, and it'll be interesting to see what they do at the next level. Will Figueroa strike out 35% of the time? Probably. Will he hit a bunch of home runs? Also probably.
Yeah, I'll just make with the guys moving up to AAA, to reiterate that point you guys have already made, but the adjustment period that these guys are going to need to make, the league average ERA in AAA right now is almost 5. It's 4.91. And as a league, I just have walks per 9 right here pulled up on Baseball Reference, which I opened 2 Baseball Reference tabs, and it almost kicked me out the stream. But 4.5 walks per 9. And like for comparison's sake, in AA, the average ERA in AA is like 4.6, 4.5. And the walks are down to like 4 walks per 9 innings. So like there's a different strike zone. It's just the different ball, the whole thing. So guys like De Leon and Joan Watch Brown, who have struggled with walks in the past and some control issues, I wouldn't be shocked if, again, the same conversation we had with when Trey Gibson moved up and Levi Wells moved up and Nestor Herman moved up. It was those initial struggles, but look what all of those guys did last year. Like a lot of these guys, or this year, a lot of these guys got to AAA the second time around this year and improved tremendously, especially guys like Trey Gibson and Levi Wells and Nestor Herman. But the International League, AAA League, Pacific Coast League is its own unique beast, but the International League as well is also an offensive heavy environment. So these guys are going to have a lot to adjust to. So I'm not taking if either have a few rough couple starts in the beginning. No, nothing's going to change. And I think my evaluation of them, give them the rest of the year, AAA season a little bit longer as well. So they are going to get some extra time out there on the mound, which is good for both of these guys. More time to prove their stuff, if they're going to be protected or not, or traded or whatever it may be. But yeah, just excited to see these new guys get up to AAA, get some fresh blood up there, because AAA has not been a priority watch really at all this year. And now it's got a little bit more exciting.
Absolutely. And before we move on to the trade proposals, I do want to talk about Figueroa and Eloy for a little bit, because both of these guys were really critical to Frederick's success in the first half, which has actually continued into the second half. And I think we know at this point the story with both of these guys. Eloy has had a really strong debut season. The month of July has actually been really one of his best, if not the best month that he's had over the course of the season. And with Figueroa, Bob touched on it a minute ago. Yes, you're going to get a lot of strikeouts, but when he's putting up the kind of power that he is right now, not to mention walking 10% of the time, you're willing to live with the strikeouts a little bit. His ability to make contact at the high levels of the minors is going to determine his future. And I think it's going to be the thing that tells us whether or not he's going to be a contributor in the major leagues, maybe as, a part-time first base DH bat, or good upper-level minor league depth that never quite puts it all together to be a major league contributor. So that's really what I'm going to be watching for him at Chesapeake. And then Eloy, I think there's been some questions about the hit tool, but from what I saw in Frederick, the base of a plus defender who can walk 10% of the time and put up maybe 20 to 25 homer seasons in his prime, all the makings of that are there. And that's a really good player, even if he is striking out and not hitting for a high average.
For me, Victor Figueroa is like the guys that the Orioles, the 4A guys that Simkin loves in the chat, that the Orioles always fill out their AAA roster with, except he's coming up the system with us, and maybe they can develop him a little bit easier and quicker that way. We'll have to see. But Eloy, I mean, he continues to be one of our best prospects for me, not to spoil our upcoming top 50 update, midseason update that's coming in a week or two. Actually, I believe it is next week after the trade deadline. But he's right up there in my top 5, top 3. Just great defense. He'll take his walks, obviously hits for authority. He's a major leaguer in my eyes, and maybe a really good one. And the strikeout rate has actually come down quite a bit the last couple of weeks. Maybe just because he's in a hot stretch. But I feel like most of the season, it was like 27%, and I believe it got into the 25% before his promotion here. So very excited for him. And yeah, I'd never mentioned Caden Hunter, but him and Joseph Giroux back in the same rotation is scary for opposing hitters and scary good for the Bay Sox. And also shout out Noel, Campusano, Morale. These are guys I really want to get my eyes on this week as they finally grace our computer screens and television screens on MILB TV.
Yeah, and we'll dive into the FCL guys when we do the FCL wrap up. So I'll just make I think with Eloy, and I wrote this in the article that I put up on Substack Monday morning, was I added an extra line just so it's not, here's the guys that were promoted, congrats. Kind of one big thing I'm going to be looking for with each player over these final few weeks. And again, small sample size, but to get a sense of where they could head into 2027. And with Hiva Eloy, I was like, just consistency. Like you look at his July, 18 games in the month of July already. He's hitting 429 with a 500 on base percentage, OPS over 1,200, 4 home runs, 7 doubles. It's 10 walks to 17 strikeouts. So yes, he's going to strike out a little bit, but when you go by like the month by month, it's been some ups and downs this year. Like it was July's obviously been hot, but it was a 1026 OPS in May, and then 714 OPS in April. So I guess that's out of order there, but 714 in April, 1026 in May. And then he gets to June, it's down to 606. July, it's over 1200. So it's ups and downs. We know he's going to hit home runs. We know he's going to play a fabulous defense. It's just a matter of over these last, what do they have left in Double A? 4 or 5 weeks, 6 weeks. Over that final stretch here, just consistent. Hopefully that first month it's not, a 675, 700 OPS, and then he finishes strong. I'd rather him finish strong than finish on a down note, but I'd love just like back-to-back 800 plus OPS months for Vahiva Lloyd to close out the year. Hit a couple bombs, put up a couple highlight reel plays at short, at third, wherever they're going to play, however they figure out this Double A infield moving forward. Yeah, I think Aloy just continues to, I don't want to say slept on, because he's not slept on. Everybody knows he's an elite prospect. I mean, he was named the best baseball player in college baseball last year. But just a little like underrated maybe in different areas of his game. It comes down to Orioles prospects and people just bringing up the hit tool concerns. And I don't want to say exaggerating them, but just hammering them too much, I think, for some of these guys. What Vahiva Lloyd does elsewhere, it's not extreme hit tool concerns, and what else he does on the field and brings to the field, it makes him a potentially elite type player in the big leagues, like Bob was talking about. So, yeah, I would love to just see competitive 2 months there for Vahiva Lloyd to close out the year, and I think he enters not as a top 100 national prospect, obviously, next year, but he enters next year with very minimal time in Double A. He's in Triple A, and by the end of 2027, he's knocking on the door of the major leagues.
Yeah, and the reason why you just encapsulated it right there, that I think Aloy is a little underrated, is because, like Irish, unanimous top 100 prospect, top 50 now in some cases. Maybe that, slides a little bit with the injury. But Aloy is every bit as good of a prospect as Irish, maybe a little bit less safe, so I could see him being a little bit lower like he is on our list. But the fact that Aloy hasn't, I don't believe, appeared in any top 100 type of list and Irish is in all of them, I mean, that's a little weird to me.
Yeah, we'll certainly have our eyes on that here over the final months of the season as these players move up. And we'll go over now to our trade proposals from our listeners. These came in through our Discord community in the podcast mailbag channel. If you are watching this show live and an idea comes to you, please feel free to drop in the comments on YouTube or Facebook. We might be able to get to it on air. What we did was we kind of crowdsourced some trade proposals from our listeners and ran them through the trade simulator at baseballtradevalues.com. Now, for reasons that we'll talk about with some of these proposals, I don't entirely agree with the methodology that the trade simulator uses, but it is a good gauge to see how realistic a trade is, and it's a good conversation starter. So we did go ahead and reference that. I think Bob put all these trades through the simulator before we went on the air. And I'll start with this one from Bobby Jones, because this is a pretty big swing for both teams in this trade. And it's a deal between the Orioles and the Angels. Reed Detmers and Zach Neto come back to Baltimore, so the Orioles get a starter that has 2.5 years of team control left to go along with a pretty solid shortstop in Neto. In return, though, Jackson Holliday, Trey Gibson, Luis De Leon, and Ike Irish go to the Angels. Now, I ran this one through the trade simulator, and it does have it as a moderate overpay for the Angels, but I think that it's within the realm of possibility. So at least a good place to start here. Bob, what are your thoughts? How would you grade this on the 20 to 80 scouting scale?
I'll give it a 40 as is, but I think we have to make we can kind of craft this to make it make a little bit more sense, I think, for both sides. And it's the Angels, so God, if they agree to it, I'm all about it. It's a great trade on the Orioles' behalf if the Angels are down for it. But I believe if you're going to make it fair, I think the player you're really after is Detmers, I'm guessing, Bobby Jones. Not that Neto is a slouch or couldn't be useful at third base or however you want to play him if he came over to the Orioles. But I think Luis De Leon or what's the other player? Ike Irish would have to come out of the deal and then also Neto. So I think either Holliday, Gibson, and De Leon, or Holiday, Gibson, and Irish for Detmers makes a lot more sense as far as making it equal. And as far as just the website, baseball trade values, yes, it's very imperfect. But as Devin put it in the Discord, at least they have a model. It's the same for everybody. So it's bad in certain ways, but across the board, and good in certain ways across the board, as opposed to like a lot of Twitter and armchair GMs will just be like, don't like this player. This guy's being undervalued. So I think just making up basically each player as you go, and there's really no rhyme or reason to it.
Yeah, I also had 40 written down for the trade, as is the original offer. I don't see the Angels doing that trade at all, to be honest, even though the Angels aren't a proper organization. And I do think if they want to go about things the right way, you move Detmers, you move Neto, and you move Jose Soriano, who I would also enjoy almost as much as you want Soriano, you want Detmers. I'll take either one, to be completely honest, and be happy. I was very down on Jose Soriano, but he's picked it back up a little bit, and I've been convincing myself that Jose Soriano would be a perfectly good get if the Orioles do go after him. But I just think this is, if you're the Angels, you package these guys up separately and move them. Detmers is obviously going to be one of the top targets, especially if Skubal isn't on the market, or once Skubal goes to the Dodgers, obviously, because we all know that's where he's going to go. Everybody else is going to turn their attention to Detmers. And I think they'd be able to offer more higher profile packages there. But it just feels like we had the Jackson Holiday discussion on the mailbag episode last week, so I won't rehash those thoughts on Holiday, but it does just feel like you're selling low on him. Just doesn't feel like the right time to move on Ike Irish after he literally just tore his meniscus. I know it's not, a torn ACL like Cobb Hightower. I don't know if Hightower's exactly the ACL, but I know it's not a potentially year-long injury or something more serious. And I don't think even the wording on Ike Irish has been he's definitely out for the year. There's possibly out for the year. So, but he's not going to come back in these last 4 or 5 weeks here. Just feels like you're selling low on Irish right now as well. Gibson just hasn't quite established himself in the big leagues. A Brandon Young-esque rise next year would be amazing, but no guarantee of that. And it's just I give bonus points for the boldness, and I understand the vision, but I think even if you're the Angels, you're auto rejecting that deal.
Yeah, I appreciate the boldness of it too. I'll go a little bit better than you guys. I'll give it a 45. I do think, though, that if you wanted to level set it a little bit, you would take Neto out of the trade from the Angels side. And then from the Orioles, including Holiday is debatable. Depending on what the Angels see in Jackson Holiday, maybe they like him enough that you could actually subtract De Leon or Iris from this package, but I kind of doubt it. If I were the Angels, I would absolutely insist on De Leon, and I would probably insist on Iris too. And then maybe, I think those values for the two players aren't that far apart, but I know what Bobby's trying to do here was as clear as some of the Rule 5 logs in. So you move a guy that's already on the 40-man in Trey Gibson, and then you move Luis De Leon, who's going to be Rule 5 eligible after this offseason. But I always feel like from the Angels' standpoint, somebody like Vaquiva Aloy would make a little bit more sense than Trey Gibson because, yeah, he's still probably a couple years away, but if everything comes together, that's your starting shortstop in 2 or 3 years. So I think that might be a little bit more appealing to them than Gibson, who is another young arm that would represent a project for an organization that has a lot of projects right now.
Yeah, and again, I understand what Bobby's going for because if the Orioles are going to buy, and we're right on the borderline, we're fighting for that last playoff spot, basically, shot in the dark. If you're going to buy someone that's here for more than just 2 months. You want to buy someone that's under control. Detmers is a great target because he's under control for 2 more seasons after this year. Totally get that. And hey, if the Angels are going to be willing to trade him, Neto is a pretty decent buy low candidate coming off of a down year compared to what he did in 2025. Still a valuable player. I know a lot of people are frustrated with Jackson Holiday. I think, again, it's selling low, and actually the last week or so, he's been one of the better hitters in the Orioles. He's walking more. I think now that we're finally completely over the Hammett bone this last couple months, I think you're going to see him start to turn it up a little bit, which he already has. So I'm not down with selling low on Holiday either, but I understand some people's frustration with him. I will have my own trade offer that is kind of similar to this, targeting a pitcher that is under control for multiple years, but we'll see if I attack it from a different angle.
And the other thing, I think earlier today, even maybe just a couple hours before we went on, I think even the Marlins are now coming out and saying they're keeping their core. They're keeping Alcantara. They're not moving their starters. Of course, we still have a couple of days to go here, and it's typical trade deadline discussions and all of that, hearsay, mumbo jumbo, whatever. But it seems like the number of sellers as of right now is there's not very many. So I do wonder if you look at an arm like Detmers and you see teams like potentially the Padres, who knows what's going to go on with the Padres or what they're going to do. But you see teams circling around for the Mason Millers and Reed Detmers and other arms like this. I do wonder, like, how high are these prices going to get? And are the Orioles going to be able to and want to be as competitive for some of these elite arms like a Detmers?
We'll go over now to this deal from Domino Effect, and I have not had a chance to run this one through the simulator yet. The Orioles would give up Heston Kjerstad, Luis De Leon, and Jerron Watts-Brown in a trade to the Rockies in exchange for Jake McCarthy and Juan Mejia. Nick, what are your thoughts on this deal?
Sign me up for it. I like this one. I give it like a 60, 65 grade. It's not like we're not dropping what we're doing and running to the microphones, doing the emergency podcast, but like we're doing a podcast that night, obviously, if that trade takes place. But I think this move improves your major league roster right now. And I think you can view this trade as kind of like this is the problem with trade podcasts and episodes. I listen to them all as well, and I sit here and I get so mad listening to these types of episodes when other people are doing it, especially when they involve Orioles trades. It's like, you idiots, you have no idea what you're talking about with these Orioles guys. I would admit I don't know these other teams obviously as well and their prospects and a lot of their players, but looking at this from an Orioles perspective, I could understand where you could say, hey, you're just trading the spare parts, right? What a lot of fans like to do. Oh, I don't like player A, B, and C, so let's trade them for the guy that I really love. It's obviously not how trades work, but I think there's Heston Kjerstad. I just think there is a world where he's hitting well in AAA right now. He's on a good stretch here down there, very quietly. I feel like he could genuinely be just like a change of scenery type guy. Like there is still maybe a little bit of upside there, and going to Colorado, obviously, with his bat could help him a little bit more. But could he be a change of scenery guy that another team like the Rockies might have some interest in? And then Juwan Watts-Brown, evaluations I'm sure are going to be vastly different among different organizations. And Luis De Leon is clearly the big ticket item there. But I like this move because Jake McCarthy, not a rental. And he makes the major league roster, I think, better immediately. You look at his home run totals are Coors aided. He's got a career high 10 home runs this year. 7 of them are at home. He doesn't have a strong outfield arm. It's 74th percentile in outs above average. But he doesn't have the strong outfield arm, but it is 74th percentile in outs above average, 99th percentile in sprint speed. He plays all 3 outfield spots, including center field, just minutes after you see some pretty poor center field play by the Orioles before Colton Cowser came in as late game substitution. But he's hitting 280 on the year. He's typically, when he's healthy, 10 to 16% better than league average bat. His bat speed is way up this year, up like almost 2 ticks, I believe. And it's resulted in really good offense. And he's a lefty hitter, but he mashes lefties. 89 plate appearances against lefties this year. He's got a 940 OPS. Righties, he's got an 807 OPS and 8 of his 10 home runs. That's where his power comes from. So it was a really, really bad March. Maybe getting used to the Colorado air. I don't know, but he's been very good ever since. He's got extra control there. Again, playing in all 3 outfield spots. I like him. And I like Mejia, just 26-year-old righty reliever, 107 MLB innings under his belt. He does have experience pitching in late innings. He's had a couple blow-up outings this year, but that happens to everybody. But it's 97 plus miles per hour with the fastball. The sinker versus righties is unhittable pretty much this year. The sweeper has a 119 stuff plus. Like, he's allowed 5 barrels all year. I really dug into Juan Mejia after seeing this idea. I like Mejia. He also has a couple of years of control, I believe. I don't know. I would love this deal. I'm all for it.
I like it as well. I was borderline 55-60 only because I love Luis De Leon and would hate to give him up, but I get it. And I think it would be totally fair in this scenario to do so. I think this is the best trade proposal we got from the listeners, and that's not to put anyone down, but I thought this was just a really creative and spot-on proposal here by, I don't have the name right in front of me, Domino Effect. Good job. Based on baseball trade values, Jake McCarthy is worth 10.6, Juan Mejia 6.6, De Leon 19.1, Jerron Watts-Brown 3.3, and Heston Kjerstad is worth 0.0. So basically, you're just throwing him in there for the good of his own career to go hit in Coors Field. I think that's fair. Let's do it. Yeah, but Jake McCarthy, he's under control for 2 more seasons after this year. I think he's the great platoon partner for Colton Cowser, or even an everyday guy if you need someone to step in and be a solid defender, solid hitter. I don't think he's going to be the hitter that he is obviously this year in Coors, but almost like the other Rockies outfielder, center fielder that everyone was obsessed with trying to trade for. His name is slipping my mind. But yeah, I think it's similar to that, where it's like, yeah, I think he's going to be maybe league average hitter, but play really good defense at all 3 positions. Could be Leody Taveras replacement next year. And I also think he was a guy I was talking about trading for when he was with Arizona a year ago. So a little bit of redemption there if we were to get him now. And Mejia, love the arm. Just really great slider. It seems like maybe not the best fastball, but when your slider's that good and you're pitching in Coors, so who knows? Those metrics might be very different when you're out of that altitude. Clearly has a very strong arm, averaging 97.4 miles per hour. He's got 4 saves this season. So pitching in high leverage, I think the Orioles could really make something out of Mejia there. So I like it.
Yeah, I'll admit that when I first saw this trade in Discord, my knee-jerk reaction was no, because Heston Kjerstad was in there, and just like Nick was saying a second ago, there is a tendency among fans, like, let's pile up all the spare parts that I don't like, or all the players I don't like, and put them in a trade for this really elite player. But then when I started to think about it a little bit more, I'm like, no, this actually makes perfect sense for Heston Kjerstad's career. And then, if De Leon is the one in this group that I would hesitate to give up, but when you're getting back years of control for a really solid center fielder and a young reliever who I think is a great change of scenery candidate, Nick just ran off some of the Pitts data there. I have to think that that's a guy that you get him out of Colorado, you get him in a good, stable environment, his career is going to flourish. And if nothing else, the 9th inning is not really locked down for the Orioles right now. Tyler Wells does a good job when he's out there, but I also think that you could roll the dice a little bit over the next couple of months, give Mejia some high leverage opportunities and some save opportunities in the final months of the season just to see what you have and see, okay, worst case scenario, Felix Bautista just doesn't ever regain his form. Is his successor right here in-house? And if it works out, that's absolutely how it will turn out. Even in that scenario where Bautista bounces back, you've got your Yenier Cano replacement, and his stuff is a little bit better. So I kind of like the deal from that standpoint.
Yeah. Jake McCarthy, bring him home. He's from Pennsylvania, went to UVA. I won't hold it against him that he went to that school over the mountain. But, I really like this deal a lot. I think Jake McCarthy instantly makes this major league team better. And like Bob said, he's not going to put up the exact offensive type of numbers he is in Colorado. But even if you look back at his numbers in Arizona when he's healthy, it's been up and down and up and down because he had a couple of injured seasons there. But when he's healthy, again, it's like 110, 115 WRC plus. He's not going to walk much, but he's also not going to strike out a lot. And he's probably not going to hit a lot of home runs here in Baltimore, but he's going to be competitive. And the defense as well.
Yeah, if we had a really good defense, how many more wins would the Orioles have this year? We don't know, but it's probably a few. And yeah, I think, what was I going to say? I had another point. That's all right. It'll come back to me. But it is a good trade offer, indeed.
So we'll go to one now here from Vivek, and this is a deal between the Orioles and the A's. The Orioles would send prospects J.T. Quinn and Yaki Rivera to the A's in exchange for Luis Medina. And this is another case where the Orioles get back a young pitcher who has multiple years of team control. And given Medina's home road splits this year, there's reason to believe that he's a solid change of scenery candidate. You get him out of that really hitter-friendly ballpark in Sacramento, put him somewhere a little bit more neutral, and the numbers could be on the upswing. But, Bob, I'll start with you here. What are your thoughts on this trade?
First, I remember what I was going to say. I was going to say if you squint, next year's bullpen could be really exciting because let's just assume, probably wrongly, that Felix Bautista will come back and at least be somewhat like a version of Felix Bautista that we have seen in the past. And let's say Ryan Helsley opts in to another year because who knows, his value might not be good enough to go back on the market, especially with the injury concerns. And then say you trade for a guy like Mejia and plus Rico Garcia, Grant Wolfram kind of established themselves this year. Next year's bullpen could be looking pretty sweet. But yeah, this trade offer from Vivek, I will give a 45. It's a major overpay according to the BTV website because Luis Medina is only worth 2.6 surplus value, while JT Quinn is worth 8.3 and Yaki Rivera is worth 0.3. But just say you think that Medina is a little underpriced on their website and Quinn is a little overrated. I can see the vision. I think Medina is a good reliever to go after. I can see the vision there. I just think you could probably trade a little bit less. And I know people are down on JT Quinn because of all this bad fastball talk. We've hit that horse on the head a bunch this year, but I'm not with that. I think we've been over why we still think he's a really good pitching prospect. But yeah, I like the target more so than what you're giving up. But I think we can refine that in post. We can edit that up to a 50 to 60 grade if we get the right players involved.
I gave it a 50 because he made an A+ argument in Discord. That was extremely well thought out. Again, yes, it's 3.5 years of control, but he has no options. That's another thing. It's a volatile arm. Was he originally a Yankees prospect? I didn't look that
I
up.
believe he was.
Okay, because I think I just did in preparation for this, I just did like a search, and the first thing that popped up was a tweet from us of Johnny Reiser rocking Medina in the minor leagues. But it's 3.5 years of control is good, yes, but there are no options because he missed last year due to injury. The individual stuff is kind of all over the board. When you compare pre and post surgery and like just his stuff plus grades, and I know like just individual stuff plus grades, throwing them out there doesn't do anybody any good, but like the sinker went from 112 to 102, but the slider went from 109 to 117. The changeup went from a 96 to 120. It's just the location plus also just magically jumped up tremendously this year post-surgery. It was like 96 in 2023 and 2024. He missed 2025, and then now it's 97.5 or no, sorry, location plus was 86, 89 pre-surgery. Now it's all of a sudden 95. So I don't know. I'm just struggling with like, who is he like, as a reliever? I think there's a lot of questions there. Yes, he's fantastic on the road and terrible at home in Sacramento, but still I have questions about who exactly he is. For a volatile arm like that, to have no options, to even just if you need that little bit of versatility, roster flexibility, it's not going to be there. And honestly, I think Yaki Rivera, he can also throw 95 plus miles an hour. He also has a hellish slider. And if you want to add him to the 40-man roster because you think he can carve out a bullpen role, he's going to have options for you next year. So, and we talked about Yaki Rivera and what he's done in Norfolk this year, and they've used him as a starter. They've let him go 3-4 innings. I've kind of thrown out, maybe it's not because they think he can be a starter, but it's to work on that control and command. He does have issues with that, but I think Rivera can give you kind of, very, very poor man Medea type stuff maybe in the major leagues this year, but he has that versatility. And yeah, with Quinn, I want one more year. Unless you're going to get somebody like a proven guy, if Quinn needs to be added to a Detmers deal or a insert starter here type deal, I'm all for it. But a reliever like Medina, I just have a hard time seeing that one so quickly for JT Quinn. But yeah, if this is like the Orioles go all in and they surprise us in the next couple of days with a big trade, and we're like, oh, we are fully going in for this thing, then sure, I'll do it. Let's roll the dice here and go for it. If you think this is one of the better deals for a reliever you can get, but on its own, I have a hard time wrapping my head around Medina.
O'Reilly. Check engine, ABS, or maintenance light on? Take the guesswork out of your warning lights with O'Reilly Veriscan. The service is free and provides a report with solutions verified by ASE certified master technicians. And if you need help, we could recommend a shop for you. Ask for O'Reilly Veriscan today.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Yeah, I'll also give it a 50 because I like that Vivek made the case for it after putting the trade in. But yeah, the actual value of it probably is closer to the 45 that Bob gave it. For me, I just wouldn't include Quinn. I think that if you are going to trade Quinn, which I'm a little skeptical if the Orioles should do that because I think his value could be higher in a year. If you are going to trade Quinn, you've got to be getting more back in return. So that's kind of how I view this. Now, with that said, I do think Medina would be a really good fit, and I would look elsewhere to see, okay, if I'm not giving up Quinn, who can I give up to make this deal make a little bit more sense for the Orioles? And at that rate, you could still include Yaki Rivera if you wanted to. The fact that Rivera seems so close to being major league ready and will have options, unlike Medina, makes me a little bit hesitant to include him, but it's not a deal breaker for me at all. Now, before we go into our last call segment, I do want to call out a comment here we got on YouTube from Gary. He had a follow-up to the Jake McCarthy trade, and it was Kobe Mayo, Luis De Leon, and Trey Gibson for McCarthy. Now, trade simulators did not like that deal at all from the Orioles standpoint. They thought that it was an overpay, but I realized in working on the trade in the simulator that the surplus value for Kobe Mayo and Jake McCarthy is nearly identical. Kobe Mayo right now at 10.1 surplus value, Jake McCarthy at 10.6. Knowing that, would either of you pull the trigger on this trade?
I still wouldn't. I just think the upside is too big, and you still have 5 years of control, I believe, with Mayo. So, yeah, I know he has struggled mightily against right-handed pitching, but he's mashed lefties. I still think he always hit righties better in the minors, so clearly he knows how to do it.
Hit a home run off a righty tonight.
Yeah, so I'm not giving up on Kobe for 2 years of fourth outfielder, fringe starting outfielder. I understand the frustration with Mayo, but I mean, he would probably love that because him and Coors, he's going to hit some shots. But yeah, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, no, that's why I like the original one better because you're also getting that reliever, and I think you're just getting the change of scenery guy in Kjerstad. I think there can be a little bit of value there, and I have no problems moving De Leon when you're getting a proven major league guy because there are the questions there with De Leon, but that one. The Kobe Mayo and Drake Gibson just from McCarthy straight up is a little bit tougher to swallow.
Yeah, I agree. And look, I'm not opposed to moving Mayo for the right trade. I think that it is plausible, and maybe he is a change of scenery guy. And Coors Field would be a great fit for him, but I've got to be getting more back. That's where I want, 3 or 4 years of a good mid-rotation starter who has a little bit more ceiling. So I would have to be getting more than Jake McCarthy back if I'm going to move Mayo. And with that, now we will head into our final segment. Last call brought to you by Checker Spot Brewing, located at 1421 Ridley Street. Checker Spot is not far from Camden Yards, making it the perfect place for a pre- or post-game drink. And if you are going to check out Checker Spot, before a game, or you're just going to hang out there to watch a game, this weekend is the perfect time to do it because on Saturday, August 1st, they will be teaming up with fellow South Baltimore Brewery District breweries Pickett and Mate for the annual hot dog race. Checker Spot, a previous two-time winner of the race, will be running as relish with Pickett, last year's winner as mustard, and Mate as ketchup. This will take place on Saturday afternoon in the parking lot outside of Pickett. Be sure to check out Checker Spot as well as South Baltimore Brewery District social media channels for more information about that. But be sure to head over there before the Orioles take on the Phillies. And if you're not going to the game, Checker Spot's a great place to watch it because they have plenty of good food to go along with good drinks and televisions for watching the action. That is Checker Spot Brewing, located at 1421 Ridgely Street in South Baltimore. And now we're going to turn the tables here in this last call segment. We're going to throw out our own trade proposals and have our fellow hosts grade them on the 20 to 80 scouting scale. We did something similar in last year's show, and we're going to do it again here. And I want to start with Nick because he has a target in mind as a guy that I think a lot of Orioles fans would be interested in acquiring, and he's put together a framework for how that could happen.
I'd actually love to go back and listen to what our trade proposals last year were now, but my deal now, I'm going to add a little bit to it. I am going to do, you guys know I hate doing this so much. The Orioles are going to get starting pitcher Nick Lodolo from the Reds. I'm also going to add left-handed reliever Brock Burke. And the Orioles are going to send JT Quinn, Kiefer Lord, Jamon Newell, and Yeber Cartaya to Cincinnati. Lodolo under control next season, so not a rental. You get a year and a half of him. I think the baseball trade values actually went down from this morning when I put the trade together because I believe he is on the IL now due to blister issues. It is typically always a blister issue with Nick Lodolo, but I also did see a report from like 4 days ago. I guess one of the Reds TV broadcasters or radio broadcasters, somebody asked Lodolo about the blisters, and Lodolo admitted that they come from the way he grips his slider, and he's willing to change that grip on his slider now to hopefully alleviate this blister issue that's been bothering him, I feel like, for his entire career up to this point. But so maybe, I don't know, but that is obviously tanking his value a little bit. So maybe you're buying low on Nick Lodolo. Burke is a rental lefty reliever. He's got just this year, 50 innings, 2.66 ERA, 4 pitches, all grayed out very well in the Stuff Plus model. Location Plus has dropped this year, going from 102 to 90 this year. So don't know exactly what's going on there, but still, he's having a really solid year. Maybe you replace Brock Burke with Sam Mole, a little bit older arm, I was looking at, has a year and a half of control. So you're getting a reliever with some control and a starter with a year and a half of control. I like Burke as a rental better, though, because he fits the lefty need, and the fastball plays really well. The fastball isn't very effective. Sam Mole's fastball sinker, whichever one he throws, just gets hammered. Great secondaries, but not a good fastball. So I'll take the rental here. Yeah, we've talked about, again, JT Quinn a ton, but Kiefer Lord, I know he's on the IL right now, but I don't think it's a uber serious injury, and he should be back this year, but he's got the Rule 5 status. I don't think you need to protect him. I think you can hide Kiefer Lord. He won't get picked up, and you've got him in the organization for another year. So I think if you're the Reds, you don't have to burn an option year next year, putting him on the 40-man already. Newell, I think we're going to talk about him in more detail when we do the FCL wrap-up here in a few minutes. He had a great year, just got promoted to Delmarva. And then Cartaya, I was surprised that Cartaya had pretty decent value on baseball trade values. But again, also Rule 5 eligible, could get a look by some teams out of a bullpen with all the changes he's made this year, good velo and all that. But yeah, I don't know. I figure buy low on Lodolo. Great first name. Would love to have more Knicks in Baltimore. So yeah, that was my offer there.
I like it. I'd give it a 50. I think he's got 1 year left of control. He kind of reminds me of Rodgers. Obviously not a one-to-one by any stretch of the imagination, but just the fact that you're getting him a little bit on a downturn and you have a little extra control to work with. So from that standpoint, I like it. His stuff is fantastic. If you can find a way to make the blisters not pop up and keep him healthy for a full season, maybe he's the guy you could also extend next spring before in going into that final year. Well, that's if games are even played. Maybe you'd have to do it like immediately after the trade just to make sure. But yeah, I like that. I don't love. I just hate the part of these things is we're getting rid of Jermaine Noel. The potential is so big, but then it's like, yeah, well, what are the odds he's ever going to come close to hitting that? So I get it. It's fair, but I'm a little bit of prospect hoarder this offseason or this trade deadline in particular, because it's like we're giving up these guys that we like with potential and that are mostly depth prospects, but they could break out. And for what? Like for a couple percentage points a chance to make the playoffs and probably go out early. That's the thing that's like in the back of my mind, like bugging me a little bit about just the trade deadline in general, not necessarily this offer.
Well, yeah, and that makes this trade deadline really tough to evaluate from the Orioles standpoint. I'll say with this particular trade, I gave it a 60 because this is probably where I just talked a few minutes ago about a trade where I would not move JT Quinn. This is where I would be, okay, yeah, I'm willing to give up JT Quinn if we feel like we can get a really good year and a half from Nick Lodolo. And if the thing that Nick just talked about a minute ago, if it's a grip to the slider that's going to have to change for him to be healthy, I think the Orioles are in a spot where they can handle that and they can work with him to get that pitch to be effective by the beginning of next year, but in a way that's not going to compromise his health the way that it does right now. So I would give it a 60. I think that of the players that the Orioles would be giving up in this trade, Quinn is the one that would hurt the most immediately, and then Newell, as Bob just touched on, because he's so young and because he's shown so much to this point in his career, you're going to be sweating that one to some extent, but it would also be years before he materializes as a major league contributor if he does indeed become one.
And the issue with Lodolo obviously being how much are you going to get out of him this year? Like how much is he going to help the 2026 Baltimore Orioles? Burt could help you. You hope he would, being a rental. But, I mean, he's not some, like, lights-out, dominant reliever where you're, like, that's the guy we're going to plug into the 8th inning or the 9th inning role. But, you know, it's a 6th, 7th inning relief type guy. It's definitely more of a, yeah, it is a buy, but it's definitely more with eyes towards the future there if you're moving for Lodolo at this point now that he's hit the IO.
My trade, I have two because I went with the one safe little trade for a reliever that's just like, okay, maybe this will help get us over that line. And then I have another one that you could either do in replace of that one, or I made it so that you could do both if you really want to try to go for it. So the first one, I'm going to go with Creed Willems and Eber Cartaya to the Athletics of Nowheresville for left-handed relief pitcher Hogan Harris, who is a 6'3 lefty, started as a starting pitching prospect, but has really found a pretty good home out of the back end of the bullpen from the left side, throwing mid to upper 90s for the A's. I think you're getting rid of two guys that are Rule 5 eligible. Creed Willems, as we talked about, not sure he's going to even be in danger of getting picked, but at least you're freeing up one of those guys in Cartaya, another one that probably not going to get picked, but hey, use them while you still definitely have them and get that left-handed relief that the Orioles probably could use, even though the bullpen's been pretty good lately, but I think a nice shutdown, especially lefty, and Harris is not like a closer. I think he has some saves, but I think he's more of like that late inning lefty that the Orioles have kind of lacked this year. And then the big trade, either on top of it or instead of it, I have Ike Irish, Trey Gibson, Esteban Mejia, and JT Quinn, because 8.3 is pretty good for a guy who I think is probably more of a 5, to the Giants for Logan Webb and either Randy Rodriguez or Eric Miller. Say you didn't trade for Harris, maybe you prefer Eric Miller, the lefty. If you did, maybe you want another righty for the late innings of the bullpen. But getting Logan Webb, I mean, big name, obviously, couple years left after this season, not having his best year, but who on the Giants is 29 years old. He's got an ERA right around 4. I think getting him for the rotation for the next couple of years would be pretty sweet. He's signed through 2028 at $18 million a year. But you are giving up a decent amount with Ike Irish, Trey Gibson, Mejia, and Quinn, obviously. But what do you guys think?
The A's deal, if that's what it took to get Harris, I'm down. I give that a solid 60. I love Creed. We all love Creed. Everybody loves Creed. I'll leave that open to interpretation. I know some people want him up right now. But there's a reason he's not up right now. And we had to watch Chadwick Trump and Sam Huff. Luckily, Sam Huff is gone. See you later. Adios. Don't have to watch that. That was a poor man Ryan Ripken swing he's got up there when he came back up to the big leagues. But that's saying a lot. But yeah, and I don't know if the guy, whoever they just picked up off waivers and called up to the big leagues, I don't even know if he's going to do anything. I know nothing about him. I haven't looked into him at all. Literally. I literally know nothing about the guy, so I don't know if he's going to give us anything either, but I think there's a reason Creed's not up, and it's not. I know Albernaz said, well, he just got off the IL. It's not just that. While they're not putting him on the 40-man, I think it'd be great depth for the Orioles next year, but if you could move him and get lefty bullpen help now, obviously love that. I think Shane Langoliers also went down, but I think he was the Ike Irish injury. We got the meniscus plague going around Major League Baseball, I guess, right now, because I think he just had surgery for a torn meniscus like yesterday or today. But yeah, in Cartaya, again, he's made a lot of adjustments. He's had improvements this year. He's a good pitcher this season, but I still also have major questions as well. But you are a team like the A's. It's hard to see like where they're going to go in the next year or two, and how they're going to. What type of roster do they want to build out there? So yeah, if you could get Harris for that deal, I love it. The Webb deal, I don't know. I like it. I think it's a solid offer. I go like a 50, 55. My knock is I don't know if the Giants take that. I feel like they would want more. They want something like maybe replace. If you had to replace Mejia with a Luis De Leon or a Joseph Giro, would you still do that deal?
Not Giro, maybe LDL.
Yeah, I feel like the Giants, I think rightfully would ask. I think he's missed some time this year, but I think he's been pretty good since he's been back. And it's also just like the team's not good. You're playing for a PR nightmare of a coach. So I could see why some of these Giants maybe statistically not up to par. But yeah, I just think it would take a little bit more. The Giants would probably want a little bit more of an impact, but also Buster Posey running the show over there. So not entirely sure what the Giants are going to do this trade deadline and how they're going to be valuing some of their guys.
It's a shame we don't have a really like horrific contract on the books anymore, like Chris Davis years ago, because maybe the Giants would have done that trade. They took Rafael Devers off the Red Sox hands. Not that trade really worked out well for the Red Sox, but maybe we could try to trick them into that one here. I'll start with the Webb trade. I mean, I would love to have Webb in Baltimore, and I think that that's a guy that if you get him out of that environment where it just seems like, as you both mentioned, everybody is struggling this year, he could really bounce back. And if he's at the front of your rotation with Bradis and Boz for the next 2.5 years, you're in really, really good shape. And that's before you start to address the roster. But I agree with Nick that it's probably going to take a little bit more to get that deal done. So I'm going to give it a 55. The trade with the A's, though, I'm going to give that a 65. I think that that's a really fair trade to look at because, it does sting a little bit to give up Willems and to give up Cartaya, but you get back Hogan Harris, who maybe walks too many guys for my taste, but you look at the strikeout numbers he put up, and he would fill – they're very good, and he would fill a very clear and obvious hole in this Orioles bullpen, which is an effective lefty who can get you outs in the later innings. Not to mention he's not even arbitration eligible until after next season. So it's not going to cost you a whole lot money-wise. So I really like that trade. Plus, watching Creed hit in Sacramento for the next few years, even if the defense is really bad, that's going to be fun.
It would. Him paired up with Tommy White. That would be fun. Fun duo right there.
I'll go over to my trade now, and this one took me a while to put together, and I nearly abandoned it, but then I thought, no, I wanted to take a big swing. I'm sticking with this. And I eventually got it to the point where the trade simulator let it pass as a moderate overpay for one of the teams. Now, this is a 3-team trade that kind of accommodates the Orioles scenario or possible scenario where they're both kind of buying and selling at the trade deadline. And it involves the Orioles, the Cubs, and the Angels. And the big pieces that move into trade from the Orioles standpoint are Trevor Rogers and Rico Garcia go to the Cubs, along with Jerron Watts-Brown, who will also acquire Sam Bachman from the Angels. Meanwhile, Reed Detmers is the only player coming to Baltimore in the deal, and then the Angels will pick up Fahiva Aloy, Trey Gibson, and Ike Iris from the Orioles, and then Jackson Wiggins from the Cubs. Now, Wiggins has not put up good numbers this year in AAA Iowa for the Cubs, but the simulator gave him a pretty high value, right under 20. So I had to kind of do a little bit of maneuvering to get this trade to work, first from the Angels side, and then from the Cubs standpoint, which is how Bachman, Watts, Brown, and Garcia got rolled into the deal. But basically what I figured with this trade is the Orioles get Detmers, who at worst I think could be a lateral move from Rogers, but if they're able to do for him what they did for Trevor Rogers, that could be an upgrade over the next 2 years. The Cubs make immediate improvements to their bullpen and their rotation, and they get some long-term value back, possibly in Watts Brown. And the Angels just get a full reload that includes a guy that could probably step into their rotation right now in Trey Gibson, a possible change of scenery candidate in Wiggins, and then if everything goes right with Aloy and Iris, 2 potential regulars in a few years. The simulator did not care for this trade from the Cubs standpoint. It declared it a slight overpay for them, but it passed enough that I felt comfortable putting it in here.
I have dual opinion on this. First of all, it's a 60 for the going for a three-person trade, 3-team trade. Like, that is tough to pull off. So hats off for going for that and getting it done relatively successfully on the BTV side of things. I kind of hate it from the Orioles standpoint, just because Trevor Rogers, you're giving up Trevor Rogers, Rico Garcia, Jerron Watts-Brown, Wahiwa Aloy, hold on, 2 more players, Gibson and Ike Irish. You're giving up all those guys for Reed Detmers, who's Trevor Rogers with 2 more years of control. Meanwhile, Trevor Rogers, you could just extend and keep all those guys, or give the qualifying offer and get him back for next year. So that's why I'm not a fan of it. From the Orioles standpoint, I think it's a home run for the Angels. I don't think it's bad at all for the Cubs either. What I think is going undervalued with Rogers is that qualifying offer. Like, you're either – and if he's traded, I don't think that is a thing anymore, I guess. So never mind there. But, yeah, I thought maybe his value is better for the Orioles just because of that fact.
Yeah, that's a lot for me as well. If you took away like a piece or two, like you took out Aloy or Irish, I'd be more down with that if we could only move one in that deal. But yeah, I don't know with all this Trevor Rogers discussion going on with the extension, where that's headed towards or whatever. But I do agree that Detmers, like if you're trying to win now, how much better are you going to be with, you're kind of depleting the farm system a little bit there, while also maybe a marginal improvement over Rogers with the addition of Detmer. So yeah, that's a tough one for me as well. I agree. I give it bonus points for making the 3-team deal work. I think the Cubs make out pretty well in this deal as well. They would enjoy it. But yeah, if I'm the Orioles, I need a little bit more back in this deal, or to give up less in there. But I mean, we got AJ Preller in the chat who says, no one's safe in my organization. Trade everybody. I just want to win games. Well, AJ Preller doesn't win games, and he trades away everybody, and he now has nothing to trade for at this trade deadline. So no, thank you. And also, isn't everyone struggling here? Talking about the Giants deal, the Orioles are 6-4 over their last 10. They just won tonight, and the Angels are currently beating the Astros. So things are looking, I think, promising right now. Just got to get that out. It's annoying. We're talking about going for it here and making good deals to try to make the Orioles better. that's just bothering me over there. But as far as this deal is concerned, yeah, way too much for me.
Yeah, I will throw in the caveat that if we were doing a prediction episode, there is no way that I would have done this. And I don't think that it makes sense if the Orioles are in buy mode, because as you both said, Detmers over the final 2 months is not really an upgrade from Rogers. But if it does, let's say the next 10 days don't go very well and selling becomes a more realistic possibility, then I think a deal like this or some version of selling becomes a possibility. Some deal like this might satisfy that strategy without making you worse off for the next 2 years.
Yeah, and honestly, 2 weeks ago, I thought we were for sure selling. And then we won 7 games in a row, and we lost some really heartbreaking, tough games to the Red Sox and the Braves that we probably should have won at least 1 or 2 more of those. But we won tonight. We're playing the best baseball we have all season right now. So, yeah, I don't know what else to say.
And with that does it for this episode. We are going to be back later this week to talk about the players that were signed by the Orioles in the draft. They managed to sign 18 of their 20 picks from this year. And then we'll also get into a wrap-up of the FCL season. It was a good summer down there for the Orioles as they made the playoffs, and several prospects stood out, and we'll talk about that later on this week. In the meantime, you can check out our many social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, and Blue Sky. We're also over at Substack, OriolesOnTheVerge.substack.com. And while we're browsing around the internet, be sure to head over to Patreon.com and sign up to become a member today at the $3, $5, or $10 levels and have access to bonus weekly shows from Bob, Nick, and myself, as well as monthly updates to our top 50, patron-exclusive channels within our Discord community, and a whole lot more. For Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens and Zach Spedden, you've been listening to Orioles on the Verge, part of the Believe Podcast Network.